So, TEKASHI69 has said he will not enter witness protection. And I've got to be honest, I'm one of the few people who thinks he'll be absolutely fine on road in public without witness protection. The bottom line is, these Nine Trey, whatever you want to call them, they ain't really about it. They're wannabes. Look at the way they were operating their business, yeah? Real business dons, real trap dons. They ain't running it like they was running it. They're not bringing in yuppie haired, green and pink haired boys and taking orders from them. Do you understand that? Tekashi was given these big, yeah man, I'm a Nine Trey. They were given these big Nine Trey whatever's orders. Yeah, they're not running things. Tekashi was running them, and now he's sold them all out as well. He's punked them all. That's the bottom line. Anyone here thinking Tekashi said from a long time ago, he don't take no L's. Naturally, on hindsight, when has he ever taken one? All I see here is the big ass Nine Trey's taking all the L's. Is it not the case? Yeah, man, I'm a Nine Trey Blood. I'm a Nine Trey Blood. I'm running. You ain't running squat, boss man. If you was, you wouldn't be in jail now looking at a 50 bid. That's what you are doing. What you should have done if you was a proper gangster, if these people had the capability, yeah, to set something up, to be doing proper hits, and to be taking people out on witness protection and whatnot, they wouldn't be getting caught up in these kind of conspiracy cases. Sloppy conspiracy cases. Yeah? Caught on camera, extorting the most famous rapper at the time, or one of the most famous rappers in history, bearing in mind how big Tupac went around in social media days. Yeah, social media's brought everything proper, universal, world scale. Tekashi's one of the biggest rappers of all time, based on being in 2018, 2019, and you thought it was smart to kidnap him in the rich part of New York. Are you smart? Are you really running a business like that? And it's funny because I heard from Rick Ross, the real Rick Ross, Freeway Ricky, and he had a massive multi-million-dollar cocaine business, and he said he'd been hustled before, in terms of deals had gone bad or whatever, and he'd lost money, and at times some of the stupid people within his gang would say, "Shall we go and get him? Shall we go and beat him up? Shall we go and do this, that, the other?" And he said no. Because look, listen, even though we've lost 100 grand, even though they owe us 100 grand, what's the point of us beating them up and catching a body and all the feds come sniffing around? It's going to cost us more in lost, but all of us having to go to jail or all of us having to fight a case in court, that's going to cost a lot more than it is to just forget it and write it off, take the L. Take it write off as a business loss. Yeah, that there is smart business. Not trying to get involved in stupidness. If these big, yeah man, I'm a Nine Trey Blood. I'm a Nine Trey. If you was really doing that, if you really had a hustle going on, you wouldn't be interested in trying to get a little mash and take my man's chains. Them chains weren't worth more than 100 grand. You got to bear in mind as well, Tekashi probably paid 200 grand for them. But on the black, you can't go into a shop and sell them somewhere else. You got to get black market rates. You're probably going to get 20, 30 grand for them. So you got to bear that in mind. Do you think these so-called, do you think it was a real organisation these dons were in? Because that's what it will take. So for someone to hit Tekashi on the street, it's going to take a real organisation. Look, as an example, look around now. I've mentioned this before, but look at the 5 families in New York, the Gambinos and whatever. When was the last time they even had a successful hit? When? When was the last time a New York 5 family? When was one of them successfully orchestrated a witness protection or otherwise hit on a snitch? No one hears about it. It's not happening no more. The FBI are way too thorough. But you already know already. Before Jim Jones was talking about, yeah man, we're going to super violate Tekashi. Before Jim Jones and all them lot were talking about violating Tekashi, the FBI already had him on wiretap. The FBI... That's what I'm trying to say. These these people here, yeah, Jim Jones, all the people that are caught up in this Tekashi case, they are what you call roadmen. They are not organised criminals. Do you understand that? It takes organised criminals to pull hits off. That's why, like I'm saying, Tekashi will be absolutely fine in public. These dons, they're nappy. They're nappy road dons. They couldn't organise squat. Never mind a proper hit. Because if they could, they'd have a proper organisation where they wouldn't be extorting my man in the middle of downtown for 30 racks. You'd be thinking to yourself, you know what? What's the point in me taking all this risk doing all this bait stuff, pulling guns and kidnapping people in downtown New York. New York's the most surveilled place on earth. What's the point in doing that? If you're really doing numbers, if you're really, yeah, I'm a Nine Trey Blood. If you're really a Nine Trey Blood, you'd be doing numbers in the street. You'd be making 30 grand a week. Why would you want to risk that for? I'll tell you why they'd want to risk it. They weren't making 30 grand in the street. That's why. They weren't really about it. They were wannabes. I hate to say it. There's a lot of people who think it's all cool. They're wannabes. They're not anyone really about it. You ain't hearing about them rolling with Tekashi. Tekashi was the hottest thing since sliced bread. Do you think any real roadman want to be associated with Tekashi? All the heat that brings, all the light it brings? No, only wannabes were associated with that, and now you're seeing the downfall of it all. Shotty is a wannabe. He weren't no real roadman. If he had a real road business, he'd be doing his thing. He wouldn't be associated. Just think about it. People, the problem with this day and age is it's the social media age. You see all these trappers or wannabe or idiots, street rats, putting all their stuff on social media, and they get locked. The same way Jim Jones and whatnot got caught on the wiretap. They're stupid individuals. Do you understand that? If you got 50-year-old, I'm an OG, I'm a Nine Trey OG. You got all these OGs getting caught on wiretaps, getting caught lacking. Tekashi's the one holding the W here. He's running for the dub, and rightly so. I believe that all them idiots, yeah, who were extorting, who were doing this, who were doing that, they've ended up in the right place, and rightly so. They were sloppy. That's it. Sloppy does what sloppy do. Yeah? You got caught lacking, and that's the end of it. Don't want to hear no more about, oh, Tekashi snitched. Tekashi's not going to be safe. What are they going to do? What do you think they can organise? They can't organise squat. Because if they could, they wouldn't be doing a 40 bid now and crying like Shotty was. Crying about it now. Because you should have been crying at the time. You should have been thinking about the consequences of your actions before doing them. Like I say, people can sit here and I don't judge no one. If people are trying to run a thing, yeah, if you got an operation and you're trying to feed your kids and whatnot, I respect that, no matter what way you want to do it. What I don't respect is when you start extorting. That was never gonna end well for you. Yeah, you can't rob people and extort people at gunpoint in downtown New York and think you just get away with it. Never mind kidnapping the most famous rapper of the time. Do you think that's really how it's going to work? Do you think you can just do that and get away with it? No. So simple as that. You're not at that point. You're not trying to. That wasn't about, oh, I need to feed my kids. That was about that was about ego. That was about trying to make out you're something you're not. And therefore, people who try and be something they're not, they end up in jail, and rightly so. They are where they need to be, because they were a danger to society. And I mentioned this in my other video, but listen. Them certain man there who have been locked by Tekashi, they could have been smart in a number of ways. Number one, they could have been smart if they really were roadmen. They could have separated their road business from Tekashi, because he was a big red flag for anyone with a brain. I'm not even into the road business, but if I was, I'd know I'd want to be nowhere near Tekashi. Number two, even more smartly, they could have said, you know what? I've got my little road game here, making little mash. I'm kind of close to this Tekashi guy. Why don't I put down my street business and try and get involved properly with Tekashi, i.e. do some proper management. I don't mean manage him and extort him and take his money. These guys ain't smart. They're not thinking about the long game. The long game would have been, you know what? I'm going to be his manager. I'm going to try and grow his brand. I'm going to try and grow his business. And I'm going to take a fair 10%. Yeah? Because 10% of 20 million a year is 2 million. That's what you could have done. Instead, they thought, you know what? I'm only going to pay Tekashi 20%, and I'm going to take 80% for myself. How long did you think that was going to last for? These dudes, they're not long-term thinkers. They think for the short term. You could have set up a proper lick. You could have been associated with Tekashi for the next 30 years. A proper lick you could have set up. Instead, you thought you were smart, thinking about the next month, and now, never mind using Tekashi as a lick, you're going to be doing 30 years, whilst he's on the outside making albums about how he mugged you lot off. About the massive L he passed you, man. But don't worry. Luckily for you, you'll have plenty of time now to think about your mistakes. That's one thing we do know. That's one thing the feds will hand you out. Plenty of time to reflect on your actions. Yeah, and when you're 70 years old, you will be allowed back into society. Maybe once you've repented for your sins, you'll be allowed out to society, and you will be a
a reformed individual.